Hello and welcome to 2024 Minnesota Vikings team preview. Today we're going to talk about the apparent quarterback battle between Sam Darnold and JJ McCarthy. If new RB1 Aaron Jones is worth your time in Fantasyland. If Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison can overcome probably below average play under center. All that and much, much more. So stay tuned. 30 minutes will get you caught up on everything there is to know about the Minnesota Vikings. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz, and joining me, as always, Fantasy Life Director of Analytics, all-around rock star, Dwain, The Rock McFarland. And Dwain, the Vikings, I felt like were a lot more fun last year than we necessarily would have expected them to be. Just given the Kirk Cousins injury, we see a lot of teams fall apart, understandably, when that happens. Season kind of left for dead. But the Vikings, and I'll even give the Bengals a random shout-out, did surprise me with how competent they continue to be throughout the rest of the season. I mean, whether it's Joshua Dobbs, Nick Mullins, Aaron Hall. These guys averaged combined 16.2 fantasy points per game during the second half of last season. So got to give Kevin O'Connell and obviously the supporting cast a lot of credit for, somewhat keeping on, even without Kirk Cousins under center. But fast forward to 2024 and definitely no Kirk Cousins under center. He is now doing his thing with Michael Penix Jr. and the Falcons down in Atlanta. And now we have Sam Darnold and first round pick JJ McCarthy competing for the starting job. So as much as I would just like to assume McCarthy is going to be the guy sooner rather than later, Dwain, we are hearing straight from the Vikings themselves that Darnold is currently the QB1. If I set the over-under at 7.5 starts for Sammy D, what would you take?
Under. Ooh. Give me the under. I've seen Sam Darnold. I know what Sam Darnold is. Give me the under.
But Dwain, what about that one throw he made against the 49ers like 4 years ago?
If Sam Darnold is starting, I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of losses early in the season. Look, can he be just a serviceable quarterback? Maybe. But if that's all you're getting, I would hope that I could get JJ McCarthy to that level and then just try to develop the guy. So I would definitely go under the 7.5.
The Vikings next year have the Giants week 1. Okay. Give them a win. 49ers, Texans, Packers, Jets before their bye week. So it wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world if they are 1-4 going into that bye. McCarthy comes in after that. So I'm with you. We can add the caveats that, yes, that we all understand, the Adam Gase experience. The Jets have one of the worst supporting casts out there. If you want to take Darnold's freaking 5-game sample size at the end of the 2022 season with the Panthers and just put your entire, weight behind that, go ahead. But even that one, when he did have, a solid EPA per drop back and some advanced numbers like that, you dig a little deeper and you see how neutered down that offense was and how few pass attempts he was actually being trusted to do anyway. So if that is the case, Dwain, then we should be having JJ McCarthy out there sooner rather than later. And I agree, I would be taking the under 7.5 number for Darnold as well. 5.5 probably would have been a better line, but that is neither here nor there. Only 4 rookies have posted top 12 fantasy numbers at the position over the past 10 years. Justin Herbert, Dak Prescott, CJ Stroud, Kyler Murray. Stroud got there, not from rushing, unlike, some of the other running backs. Do you think the supporting cast could be good enough to elevate McCarthy, or just too much too soon for a guy who literally just turned 21 in January?
Yeah, I mean, you have a good play caller and Kevin O'Connell, for sure. We'll talk more about that here in a minute. Yep. You have good weapons around you with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison to start out of the gate. TJ Hawkinson eventually will be back. So there are the weapons to do it. But it's just the odds, man. The average quarterback that wasn't the first pick overall, so get rid of these very top guys, but still went in the first round, 196 average passing yards per game, like going back to 2018. If you go back further, it goes down, but I tried to just look more at the recent rookies who have done better. But I mean, come on, I've got him projected for 219 yards. I think this is one of the most overrated offenses in the marketplace right now. When I look at it, I think people are assuming they're just going to throw for 250 yards and all they cite is Kevin O'Connell. Well, Kevin O'Connell is the reason I didn't project, a rookie quarterback to throw for 195 and I gave him 219. You can't automatically just dump the 250 or 260, in my opinion. Now, there are other analysts that are very sharp that are good at this that have the Vikings for around 250 passing yards per game. So I'm not trying to say that, other people aren't, doing their work and figuring it out. But for me personally, looking at what's going on, JJ McCarthy's a middle of the first round, slightly above quarterback pick, and that has not always worked out well. Not saying he's not going to be good, folks, so please don't take that and misconstrue my words, but it's year 1 for this guy, so I think it's going to be a bit of a struggle, and this offense is going to take a major step back in 2024.
If we had more evidence that he was just a more prolific rusher, then maybe I could get behind him as a, literal last few round pick, but we really don't, man. Just 4.2 fantasy points per game from purely rushing production over these last 2 seasons, far closer to Michael Penix, who was at 2.2, than Bo Nix, who was even at, 7.3. So McCarthy can run. I saw him pick up many a clutch first down against my Buckeyes over the last few years and was not too happy about it. Let me tell you, I understand, he was a 4-5 guy. This is not the hate on JJ McCarthy, show. I didn't give him a lot of praise, before the draft. Former 5-star, won a freaking natty at IMG Academy, in his last year in high school. Obviously, did what he was asked to do at Michigan. It's not his fault their run game and defense was so good out there. But again, just looking at rookie quarterbacks in an offense that, is going to need him to be pretty darn good in order to matter all that much in fantasy land. I'm with you, not someone I've been going out of my way for. But Dynasty land, Superflex, Dwain, certainly, someone that we are taking sooner rather than later. I believe it's pretty tough to rank, more than 6, maybe 7 guys ahead of him.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's fine in Dynasty, fine in Superflex, fine in Best Ball. When you've set all your stacks and everything up, you can now get him in the last round. I think the market has adjusted more appropriately to the way we should be viewing the Vikings as far as, McCarthy goes and where he's going. But I think the other skill position players are really where the big risk is right now with ADP for the Vikings guys.
I did a quick study last week for a Broncos article where I was actually kind of looking at this for Bo Nix and basically just like the number of top 12 PPR weeks by fantasy draft round by position. And sure enough, it was quarterback and tight end that were sticking out as actually having a meaningful number of top tier weeks at the end of drafts. So yes, a lot of that has to do with the denominators in play and everything like that. Running backs and wide receivers typically going earlier. But yeah, man, we do see, just again, relatively more spike weeks at quarterback and tight end late. Don't be afraid to tack on one of these rookie signal callers if you happen to be getting sniped, each and every round like your boy was yesterday. They had Jalen Hurts and Mahomes, Dwain, and a best ball, non-super flex, and you had to snipe Deshaun Watson from me. I didn't want Deshaun Watson either, but that was what we had to fall back on. I'm over it. Okay, back to the subject at hand. Aaron Jones, new RB1 in Minnesota. Dwain kind of got shafted out of Green Bay. It sure seemed like they signed Jacobs and then cut Aaron Jones afterwards. And by that point, a lot of these top, teams had kind of already found their new guy. So just a 1-year, $7 million deal, not necessarily the sort of money where you're expecting him to, again, be overly featured. But then at the end of the day, you look at the depth chart and it's just Ty Chandler, Kene Nwanu, Dwayne McBride, a whole lot of nothing there. So Aaron Jones, yes, is getting a bit long in the tooth, but I don't know, man. Still has under 1,500 career regular season touches. That is less than Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs. I don't think we're necessarily worrying about their, wheels falling off this year in a major way. So overall thoughts on Aaron Jones, who joins, let's see, Gibbs, Achane, Cook, Kamara, Jones, and Stevenson as the only running backs that Fantasy Life projections have between 150 and 200 carries with 50-plus targets.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to basically be 30 when the season starts. He'll be 29.8 technically, but he'll be turning 30 during the season. So, I mean, he's getting up there to your point, but he hasn't shown any signs of slowing down. And we're not always good at predicting this stuff. He's definitely in the window where he could hit that cliff. But one thing I like about guys that are, when they're in the cliff that I want to see, if they're in that range where we know it could just dramatically fall off at any time, I want to see that they're still very involved in the passing game. And that can help pad the potential issues. And when you look at Aaron Jones, like, he's just always been this underrated receiver. He's never gotten to take over a full passing down workload, which, as much as I love Matt LaFleur, that's one thing I would love to be like, hey, man, why didn't you ever just give like Aaron Jones the full-time pass down work? I mean, this guy, targets per route run over the last 2 seasons of 24 and 23%. Those are high-end running back one marks. So if he gets more route participation this year in the Minnesota offense, especially early without TJ Hawkinson, I think we could see some huge games out of the gate from Aaron Jones as far as the volume and the way that he is getting used. And then if you look at him on the ground, Ian, these things can go away. But I mean, this guy has still been explosive, well above the league average rush rate and 10-plus yard rushing attempts. Yards after contact, still above the league average. And then if you just look at his ability to force missed tackles, he's still above in all those things. Now, the two that running backs typically own the most year over year is yards after contact and missed tackles forced. So no signs of slowing down yet for Aaron Jones. It could certainly hit, but I like knowing that he has that passing game upside. My biggest concern for Aaron Jones is just how good can the offense be? Are we going to get a lot of scoring opportunities for him, or is he going to have to really break a lot of long plays? You don't want to necessarily depend on that with an older guy. But again, this is all priced in right now in drafts and best ball Not saying it'll be this way in your redraft league. Round 7, Aaron Jones. Are you kidding me? And I can take him potentially as my running back 1. I could have taken 4 wide receivers, an elite tight end, an elite quarterback, came back and done whatever I wanted with another pick and still get Aaron Jones. Like, it's just it's baffling to me that I can still do this.
10-pick range in that round that you just said. Aaron Jones, Ramondre Stevenson, the Steelers running backs, Jonathan Brooks, and Zamir White. You prefer Jones out of that group, Dwayne? I will say personally, I found myself drafting more Stevenson and Jalen Warren when I do have my pick of the litter.
I mix them up, but I think Aaron Jones is a more explosive player right now than Ramondre Stevenson, but he's also older. So, I mean, there's more risk baked in. So I mix all those guys up, and honestly, it just kind of depends on how I'm building the team. But I think I would be fine with Aaron Jones as my running back 1 heading to a season if the rest of my roster to that point in the draft is stacked.
It's a great, tier and just spot of drafts to be taking running backs. I think we can agree.
You should be taking running backs in that range. You don't want to be forcing wide receiver picks in that range. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's some guys there like JSN I still definitely want, but you get to a point there really quickly where all of a sudden you're staring down the barrel of a Cortland Sutton. You want to be taking a running back in that range.
I was about to say the 2 wide receivers we see infiltrating that same, ADP area, Keon Coleman and Jamison Williams. So I don't think we need to go too deep into why they are a bit more risky picks than legit RB1s, being priced right there. So yeah, I mean, last year it sucked to see, Jonesy suffer that, week 1 hamstring injury against the Bears, but was absolutely crushing it before that. And then when he finally got healthy down the stretch, 5 consecutive games with at least 100 rushing yards to end the season. So certainly looked great there. My, I guess, only other concern, but you mentioned it, Dwayne, it could be a moot point because of the absence of TJ Hawkinson, but the Vikings do join the Ravens and Rams as the only 3 teams averaging fewer than 75 total targets to their running backs over the past 2 seasons. But then again, man, last year, I probably wouldn't be signing up to throw the ball to Alexander Madison all that much either. Could see, the improvement in Jims and Joes changing the X's and O's a little bit from that standpoint. All right, Dwayne, but obviously there is one star that shines brightest in Minnesota. The NFL's highest paid wide receiver, for my money's worth, the very best wide receiver, Justin Jefferson. However, we are not, drafting a Madden team. We're not drafting a real life team. We are drafting a fantasy team, and the performance of wide receiver 1s attached to rookie quarterbacks hasn't been good over the years. I mean, we're talking about 41 offenses since 2010 with a rookie QB starting at least 10 games. Only 12%, which is 5 total of them, produce a wide receiver 1. Top 12 in fantasy, 32% in the top 24. Average finish wide receiver 33, medium wide receiver 35. So no problem for someone like Terry McLaurin, who's already priced around that range. But for Justin Jefferson, who we were forced to pick at the middle, if not the top of round 1, it does become a bit problematic, Dwayne. So for you, again, we have CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown. We agree. Justin Jefferson is better than those guys, but is the gap that he is better than them worth the gap in just the difference of quarterback play? For me, it's probably not.
Yeah, for me, it's not either. And I hate to say that because I'm with you. Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver in the NFL, period. We love him, okay? But here's the thing. You just talked about the rookies. I talked about earlier, 196 yards per game is the average for guys that were not the first pick, but still went in the first round. We have a lot of questions about J.J. McCarthy. People immediately assume, Kevin O'Connell, he's just going to overcome that. Look what Nick Mullins did last year. Guys, Nick Mullins already had a 265 yards per game average in a 10-year season with the 49ers. So like this guy had already shown that he could throw for a lot of yards in a game. Quarterback is a huge driver to the way you're going to run your offense. Okay. So I think you're talking about coming down from Kirk Cousins where you're throwing for 270, 275 yards per game. I have them projected for 219 right now. Now, again, some people might say that's too low, but I feel like I'm already being nice. Like 196 is the average.
You gave him 20 plus more.
Yeah, I gave him 20 plus more. So 5% of wide receivers since 2011 that ran at least 400 routes have been a wide receiver 1 in that kind of offense. The average drop in fantasy points per game in a PPR league for someone taking that kind of hit from where they were with Cousins to where I'm projecting them for this season, 2.5 to 3 fantasy points per game. Now, that still means Justin Jefferson's a wide receiver 1 because guess what? He was scoring over 20 fantasy points per game. So now you're talking about a guy that's at 17. Historically, if you're over 16, you are a wide receiver 1 since 2011. The problem I have, Ian, is I don't see a path right now except in the extreme case, which is J.J. McCarthy goes bonkers, where you're just going to regret taking Justin Jefferson unless the other guy you take where he's going gets hurt. and Justin Jefferson stays healthy, then that becomes the other thing. So I think JJ's fine. You can still take him in the first round, but I don't think he has the upside of Bijan Robinson. I don't think he has the clear upside of Breece Hall. I'm not taking him over Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think once you get to A.J. Brown, once you get to Puka Nacua, that's really where the conversation starts. And I'm not going to get cute because I do want exposure to Justin Jefferson. So I'm taking him once I get to pick 8 or 9, which is pretty rare, Ian. He rarely falls there because the truthers of talent, if you will, which I believe we are too, will just tell you, you have to take him. The problem is the other guys going around him are also really talented.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Again, it's just juggling all these different factors. And for me, I think discrepancy in the difference of quarterback play in this specific case does outweigh any extra talent that, Jefferson might bring to the table versus these other guys. So Fantasy Life Consensus Ranks, which you can find at fantasylife.com. CMC, CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Those are the only guys we have going ahead of Justin Jefferson. He's then next to A.J. Brown. So again, this is not the Justin Jefferson you need to fade him hour, but hey, reigning, wide receiver 1 going off the board, not so much for us ahead of 2024 because of things that are not in his control. So we saw it down the stretch last year, still had some big performances. Yeah, 5 games with over 140 yards in only 10 games is absolutely wild. He's an incredible player, but yeah, guys, we got some new stuff going on in Minnesota. Luckily, Dwain, though, we do have ace play caller and head coach Kevin O'Connell once back again, flanked by OC Wes Phillips. So this was a pass-happy offense, just raw, situation. Regular pass play rate last year was 3rd in the NFL. 12th ranked O-line per PFF, returns all 5 starters. I mean, this could be a situation. Again, I'm with you. I'm not overly optimistic that McCarthy is going to figure it out. But in terms of the weapons, in terms of the continuity, in terms of the offensive line, there are a lot of good pieces here. And I think a lot of that starts with Kevin O'Connell. Stephen Patton at Patton Analytics, really good Twitter account. He actually did a good job trying to quantify some play caller rankings last year. And Kevin O'Connell finished 7th, just ahead of Ben Johnson and Sean McVay. So yeah, fine. If you want to give Ben and McVay the nod over, O'Connell, I'm not going to disagree with you. But it seems like at a minimum, Dwain, O'Connell has been done enough so far to, agree with the notion that he's a top 10 play caller in the NFL.
Absolutely. I love Kevin O'Connell. I love everything about the way he runs his offense, but people underestimate how good Kirk Cousins was and what that allows you to do as a play caller. So in our projection model, the major driving factors are, number 1, your quarterback. And this is how we're going to project your whole offense. The quarterback really matters. It's a bigger driving factor than your coordinator. And we just talked about the history of rookies. Even if JJ McCarthy ends up being good for a rookie, it's going to be a step down from where you were with Kirk Cousins. So I have their plays per game. The other drivers real quick are our expectations. Win totals at 6.5. Guys, that's not good for efficiency. That means you're trailing. So they're going to try to protect JJ McCarthy. And then the other component is your head coach and offensive coordinator. Those things come together, but quarterback is so huge. And that's how we get our plays per game. That's how we get our pass rates. So 60 plays per game, that's down from 62 last year. I think you could argue that I should have it more around 60.5, 61. I've had some really good conversations with smart folks on Twitter. They're a little bit higher than me, but it's coming down. And then the pass rate, I have it at 61.5%. That's their drop back rate. So that includes the times you get sacks, the time you scramble. Guys, last year they were at 67%, the year before 66%. That's how much a quarterback change like this matters. Now, the way that I'm wrong about all of this is in the 5% chance that JJ McCarthy is just way better. He really is a superstar, and I don't have a way of telling you that he's going to be. Basically the averages tell you he's not going to be, not in year 1 anyway. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I'm going with the historical averages here, not going with the outlier case that JJ McCarthy is suddenly CJ Stroud from last season. And I feel pretty comfortable doing that. So I think this offense is going to change a lot. I think they'll still do things to make JJ McCarthy efficient, like the motion, the play action, all the cheat codes. Kevin O'Connell knows how to push all those buttons, but drop back rate over expectation, I guarantee you it's coming down in a dramatic way.
I will say I have to go on in podcast with Ace Vikings, beat reporter Matthew Collar, and You know, he wasn't trying to say that it's the end all be all and putting this ridiculous amount of stock behind it, but he was saying that watching Darnold versus McCarthy was like night and day. Darnold looked way far ahead of him in terms of what they were doing, just throwing on air. So small piece of the puzzle, but doesn't seem like McCarthy's exactly, blowing everyone away so far. There is a reason why they have, named Darnold the starter for the time being. So
hey, real quick from you, Ian, on this
ahead.
topic, do you think there's a chance Darnold's still good, or am I just dismissing that by too much? He hasn't had great situations. I know somebody on Twitter the other day, Michael Salfino, he came at me pretty hard with, hey, man, you're just being too hard on Darnold. Now, Salfino has liked Darnold for a long time. And if you guys know Salfino on Twitter, he can be pretty prickly, and he was, coming at me on it. So I'm like, okay, am I too low on Sam Darnold? I feel like, okay, I've seen enough Sam Darnold at this point. It's not like he's never had any good wide receivers.
I mean, we got Le'Veon Bell hilariously just shitting on Adam Gase all the time on Twitter now. And, we're talking about the 2nd and 10 runs. That part wasn't great. I mentioned my supporting cast ratings, which takes PFF average rushing, receiving, run blocking, pass blocking grades. Jets are dead last, and trailing 5-year average on that. So it was horrific, but man, Dwayne, again, 76 qualified quarterbacks since 2018, and Darnold ranks 56 or worse in EPA, completion percentage over expected, PFF pass grade, passer rating, yards per attempt. We have to dismiss 50 games of his career and just focus on this final end of season stretch with the Panthers where he wasn't even asked to do much to try to get there. So could he surprise in fantasy land? Because he actually low-key has had, some solid rushing production over the years, particularly near the goal line. Maybe there, that's the kind of scenario.
I mean, passing yards per game. Is there any way Darnold comes in and makes it 250 yards per game? Because that's how we miss on Jefferson. Darnold is the other out that I'm not talking about. I'm assuming at this point Darnold is a journeyman quarterback that's not going to come in and light things up. We've never seen it. 215 yards per game, in his seasons where he played at least 12 games.
No, I agree. I don't think Darnold's a good quarterback. I think he makes a throw or two a game that lets these people post their, singular all 22 clips and try to act like they're, just watching a different sport than the rest of us mere mortals. But, again, if he looks like a bad quarterback for 5-6 straight years, there's a lot of it too, Dwayne, where if he was started off in a different team, a different organization, could he have been molded into a better quarterback? Sure. But the damage that 5 years of that stuff can do to you for the rest of your career, yeah, I am out on Sam Darnold. But hey, maybe you aren't. Maybe you can just go ahead and put your money where your mouth is if that's the case. Over at DraftKings, that's right, guys. We partner with DraftKings Sportsbook. And right now, all new customers who bet just $5 will get $150 in bonus bets instantly. All you got to do is download the DraftKings app and sign up using our promo code FantasyLife. The crown is yours. And keep in mind, guys, if sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. DraftKings is the one-stop shop for all things daily fantasy. We can join in on all the fun and have the shot to win cash prizes. You can even watch Dwayne and myself attempt to do so over on the Fantasy Life YouTube page Friday mornings at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. Always a great day to be great over there. But yeah, guys, new customers, again, promo code FantasyLife. Bet just $5 on any wager and get $150 back in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code FantasyLife only at DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. You mentioned the win total before, Dwayne, but it is resting at 6.5, minus 150 juice on the over. So that's the part that kind of gets me okay, in my heart of hearts, do I think the Vikings can win 7 or more games? Yes, but in gambling, we got to make some tougher decisions. And with that juice, I will be taking the under. So certainly not one of my stronger leans. And I'd like to think we're not saying that too often at this portion of the podcast. I will give them credit. They spent some serious money on Jonathan Greenard and Andrew Van Ginkel because this defense hilariously last year was 28th in pressure rate despite blitzing more than absolutely anyone out there. So again, Kevin O'Connell, maybe he continues to get some better quarterback play than expected, but this looks a lot like the worst team in the division. They are, indeed fourth, plus 950 odds to win the division. I'm taking under, even if this could be a 7-win team, and I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I'm definitely taking the under. It's weird that you got to go minus 150 to take the over. Honestly, that's a little weird to me. I think a lot of it just comes down to we're in a 17 game season era now. And so that's a pretty low total, but I think there's a lot that could go wrong this year for the Vikings, and quarterback play is the absolute number one thing on the list. Their defense is terrible. They did make some improvements, but the rest of the division, we already talked about, we've done Jordan Love. He looks great. You get Caleb Williams now with Chicago. It's just, the Lions are really good. I don't see it. I don't typically go against the market, but if I were to make a stand, this is the one where I would say, no, give me the under on 6.5 for the Vikes.
Takes us to last few positions we need to talk about. Usually,
Thor.
Sorry, Thor. Love you though, Thor. Fantasy Life's newest great employee. But yeah, man, usually we have a position battle to go through. Honestly, like the one we could talk about is the tight end room because TJ Hawkinson, guys, heavy pup candidate. And honestly, both Dr. Jesse Morris and Dr. Jeff Mueller believe Hawkinson could miss half of this season and then have an overall performance dip until 2025. So maybe Josh Oliver's role stays the same. Kevin O'Connell called Johnny Mutt hilariously the best number 3 tight end in the NFL. Maybe he gets a bump. I was in a best ball draft. I believe it was, only an 18 round or two. And I actually saw someone draft Robert Tonyan, which was hilarious. So, hey, if you're a Robert Tonyan truther, good for you. We'll monitor this performance. If we see some wild, preseason starter snap splits and stuff, we'll readdress this. But for now, I think we can go ahead and fade this tight end room for the time being. Hawkinson, someone that, again, even going tight end 15, not someone I'm inclined to be taking many chances on unless he's going outside the top 150 picks. So, Dwain, again, I think the bigger question is what to make of second-year wide receiver Jordan Addison. Did a lot of good things last year as a rookie, finished as a wide receiver 30 in PPR points per game, but already kind of saw that drop off without Kirk Cousins. 7 touchdowns in 8 games with Cousins under center, just 3 in 9 games without. So fantasy life projections have Jefferson dominating target share here with 150 targets, Addison just 98. So again, no Hawkinson could make life easier, but you buying a year 2 true breakout for Addison with all those aforementioned problems under center?
Well, I think overall, like what Addison did last year was fine. Like the underlying data point, like didn't make you crazy. But again, like fantasy points per game for a rookie, that was really good. He took over a full-time role in week 8 last year. So if we just move past that and we exclude the week 16 injury game, you had a 96% route participation and 20% target share. Problem is, once Justin Jefferson returned, the final 4 games of the season, even though he kept that 93% route rate, his target share dropped down to 18%, 15% targets per route run, but he still scored 16.9 fantasy points per game. Now, that is tied to touchdowns. The dude came up with a lot of long plays, but I got to tell you, that was littered all over his college film as well, even though he got a lot of stuff around the line of scrimmage. This is a very good route runner. He's got
sick double moves.
It's very sick double moves. The question is, does he have someone that's going to be willing to go YOLO and get him the ball like that, like Nick Mullins? Look, Nick Mullins, you can say what you want about him, but he will live that YOLO life, and he will throw for a lot of yards per game. It's going to come with like 3 interceptions, but he's going to go out there and wing it. I don't know if we're going to get that with Sam Darnold or J.J. McCarthy. So I'm underweight on Jordan Addison as well. But again, it's not necessarily about the player. I think long-term in Dynasty, Addison could still be fine.
Right now, the wide receiver 39, which you can bicker about if that should be a little bit lower. That's fine. My bigger issue and why I haven't been drafting him as much is that he's going alongside guys like Joe Mixon, Rachaad White, who, if you don't have a running back yet, are pretty nice first ones to be grabbing, in round freaking 6. What a time to be alive. And then also George Kittle, Kyle Pitts, really the end of that, elite tight end tier, if you want to call it that. I've been drafting a lot more Pitts than someone like Addison. So takes us to really the last key contributor to talk about, Dwain. Probable RB2, I think we can say that. Ty Chandler got to start the final 4 games of 2023 and racked up 27, 8, 13, and 15 combined carries and targets. That said, Alexander Mattison was back for those final 3 games, but it still was Chandler starting. So not worried about the rest of this depth chart. I'm not calling it a position battle. Kene Nwanu, Myles Gaskin, Dwayne McBride, not moving the needle for me. But when you look at the ADP range that Ty Chandler's going in, Dwayne, he's really next to running backs Zach Charbonnet, Kendre Miller, Rico Dowdle, Nick Chubb, Marshawn Lloyd, Jalen Wright, and Jaleel McLaughlin. I'll say this. I've drafted more Marshawn Lloyd, but between him and Chandler, those 2 are the guys that stick out for me in that range.
Yeah, I think Chandler's fine. I think Aaron Jones is clearly the top guy.
Yeah.
But I've got Chandler projected for 31% of the team's rushing attempts and Aaron Jones at 52%. So I think he's a guy that's going to get work if something happens to Aaron Jones, which has been known to happen. And he is a guy that's getting older. Ty Chandler, when he stepped in and had those opportunities, he gave you some nice spike week performances. So he is a guy I do look to mix in. A lot of times I let, the way I've set up my early stacks dictate if he's the backup running back that I'm choosing versus someone else.
As always, at the end of these team previews, we're going to compare the Vikings to a TV or movie character. I'm going to the deeper TV streets here, Dwayne. I'm going with Julian from the Trailer Park Boys. And I do mean this as a sort of backhanded compliment. Like, you do see signs of intelligence here, and you believe there's really something there. Like, Julian stands out, but you're standing out in a trailer park, man. This was a team that, yeah, Kevin O'Connell did a really good job keeping things together. It's still a team that was 7-10 last year, and now they have a 6.5, win total going on. So they simultaneously, Julian and the Vikings, they seem one step away from jail and last place, as well as, actually maybe hitting a good scheme for once and making a run in the playoffs. So again, probably shouldn't be expecting much from them, and overall we aren't, but you almost can't help believing in their future potential. So that's mine. What say you?
I'm going to go with Wizard of Oz. And honestly, like, you could apply this one to a lot, Ian, but it's the head coaches that we love. And they are very important, and they're behind the scenes, behind the curtain. You don't know what's back there yet.
Also, the actual wizard.
Yeah.
Wizard.
Well,
okay.
I'm going to go with the show too, but yeah, the wizard from the Wizard of Oz. They're pulling all the different chains and everything, got everybody fooled. But you know what? We'll pull up the curtain on you really quick. A rookie quarterback and Sam Darnold. So, like, look, and we don't know, like, maybe JJ McCarthy is Dorothy. Maybe he can be that lead character that can lead everybody else and pull them up, around him. We know he's got a great playmaker in Justin Jefferson, but yeah, I think as much as I love Kevin O'Connell, I think the mark is just too high right now on this offense.
We're getting some wild, swings here in some of the references.
You can tell I'm old. I just went with Wizard of freaking Oz, which that movie's even old, like, compared to me. So
an American classic. Those monkeys freaked me out as a kid.
Oh man, those monkeys scared me when I was little. I had some nightmares about the monkeys. I'm not gonna lie.
My goodness. So hopefully not too many nightmares about the 2024 Vikings, but yeah, not too optimistic over here. But in the future, hopefully things will be great. But yeah, guys, a reminder, you can check out all of these Fantasy Life previews over at FantasyLife.com. In written form, I am done 32 up, 32 down. Excited to get back to some more strategy-oriented stuff here soon. But also check out Dwain's projections and our Fantasy Life Consensus Ranks, again, all at FantasyLife.com, where, hey, you can also subscribe to our always free and informative and even entertaining newsletter as well. So thanks for tuning in. For Dwain, for producer Matt, I'm Ian. Thanks again for stopping by, and until next time, take care, everybody.